This podcast is part of the Some Buddies Network. You're never alone when you've got some buddies.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are talking about a much simpler episode than the ones that we've discussed previously. This one gets straight to the point, a very clear-cut, balanced 3 acts. It is My Sister, My Sitter, which I finally got in the correct order. But of course, joining me today to discuss this episode, as always, my older friend who I'm in charge of, Richie the Whiz Kid. How are you today, Rich?
I'm very excited because we have 18 guests we brought along with us today. So, nope. I'm just kidding. We appreciate all the guests we've had lately, but it's time for us to fly solo by flying together. I
love that. Let's join together so we can fly solo.
Yes, there we go. Clearly, I'm not good at words and talking and such. So I should probably throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the much ado about muffins. It is Miles.
Welcome back to the We're Not Good at Words podcast. We're so glad you were able to join us here today.
It's impossible for us to fail English.
That's impossible. Like I said, we are talking about My Sister, My Sitter today, which originally aired on March 2nd, 1997. This one had no chalk gag, but it did have a couch gag, which featured the Simpsons couch on a rocking, pitching boat deck as a tidal wave rushes over the family, leaving only the television still afloat in presumably the ocean, it would seem.
You know, I'm at the point where I can't remember anymore if we've seen these or not. I feel like this is a brand new one, but we're 8 seasons in, and at this point, my brain's exploded on the couch gags.
I feel like this is a repeat, but now you're in my mind that I'm like, maybe I'm just thinking of that level from Overcooked.
Oh, gosh.
It could be either. This one did have a commentary, of course, which featured Josh Weinstein, Matt Groening, George Meyer, Jim Reardon, the voice of Lisa Simpson, Yardley Smith, and Josh Weinstein's very young kids, Molly and Simon, who I think it's interesting, actually, just a recent experience that I had was I actually showed this episode specifically to my nephews, who are like 5 and 3. But I chose this episode specifically because in my mind I was thinking of the Simpsons episodes that are close to what I'll be covering soon. The idea of this one I thought would make sense to them, and just the idea that they could probably understand how odd it would be if like the 3-year-old were put in charge of the 5-year-old. And it was just fun for me in that regard because during the commentary of this episode, Josh Weinstein's kids asked a lot of questions, and it very much was kind of that same nature of like understanding, like they could very much connect with the idea that it was weird that Lisa would be put in charge of Bart, and like how uncomfortable that must be for Bart. And I just thought it was very interesting that like little kids can connect to at least one of the main plots of this episode. I mean, there really is only the one plot if you want to really get kind of technical, but I guess you could argue Marge and Homer's adventure is kind of a B plot.
They had an adventure in this one? I don't even remember.
They had a reason to get out of the house.
What I find odd is that you showed a 5 and 3-year-old a Simpsons episode where it quite looks like Bart is dead at one point.
Yeah, they really actually got a kick out. The like biggest laugh for sure was like when he goes tumbling down the stairs. Kids love physical humor, man. Like that's
you taught them to push each other down the stairs. Like, oh, Miles, why?
Dude, I'm the fun uncle, first of all, but that doesn't mean we're not safe. They know that they can see something on TV and it's not okay to do that in real life.
Or they just tell you that they understand it and then they're out back smoking weed 5 minutes later.
Okay. First of all, you got those roles reversed. But either way, I do want them to smoke weed one day, but not today.
Well, by the time they grow up, it'll be illegal anyways.
Yeah, of course.
However, I agree with you about the oddities of this episode, even though it is a straightforward episode. The issue I had more than Lisa being younger and babysitting was Lisa babysitting people in her own class. And by people, I mean person, and by person, I mean Ralph. That's the part that would be awkward, in my opinion, is having somebody...
dude, that's the only one that makes sense. Ralph needs supervision at all times.
I'm talking about, like, just the dynamic of, like, this person is in my class, and yet they're babysitting me. Like, if Ralph actually cared, that would be a very awkward situation.
So, as far as the commentary goes, though, I did just want to kind of talk about that up front solely for the reason that while it was actually really insightful and entertaining in its own way, it didn't leave for a lot of discussion about the actual episode itself. There was a lot more of, probably the most adorable was actually Yardley talking to Molly and Simon, who are Josh Weinstein's kids, and it was just kind of fun hearing her trying to, like, discuss this perspective with these children. I found it interesting. Let's dive into the episode and see what we find interesting about it. Starting out, we open with Kent Brockman hosting another installment of Eye on Springfield. We touch base with a couple of headlining stories, such as the first 2-story outhouse. Great idea.
Oh, God!
A comedy nurse.
Does anybody in here have shoulder surgery? Gotcha.
They all raise their hand painfully. But the main story, what was once the center of a thriving squid gutting industry, is now abandoned by all but a few longshoremen and an allied tradespeople. But it's going to be remade into a squid port, which is actually going to have a black tie gala as its grand opening on this upcoming weekend.
And the allied trades person that he was referencing was a prostitute.
Prostitute, yes, absolutely. Good catch. I forgot that sometimes podcasting isn't a visual medium. We have to. That's why we're here. Good catch.
We describe things. Good catch, like a squid. Oh wait, that'd probably be a bad catch. I don't know. We're not good with animals.
Marge is very interested in the idea of this fancy event. Oh, that sounds fabulous, Homer. Stores throw the best parties.
You like parties, huh? Well, I just remembered they're having a big one down at the waterfront this weekend.
You didn't remember that. You just saw that on TV.
The important thing is, I didn't imagine it.
That raises so many questions as to the events that Homer has imagined in the past and gotten the rest of the family excited for, only to be crushed by the fact that it was just in his mind.
I just want to know how extravagant the events in his head happen to be.
Yeah, I wonder if he gets to wear a monocle in all of them.
Ooh.
They did have time to point out in the commentary that once again they start with the Simpsons getting a fun idea by watching television as they open the show. Never gets old.
We've never seen that before.
Upstairs in Lisa's room, we see that Lisa has a convenient friend named Janie, one who's there because she's needed in this plot to recommend that the Babysitter's Twins, which is a series of books, are the best, and she just can't get enough of them. I mean, they arrested counterfeiters, rescued the president, and made $4.
I liked the book that Lisa was holding because it was called The Formula, and I want to read that one. Where they're holding a baby bottle with something in it. I'm not sure which.
Are you a big fan of the Babysitter Twins, Rich?
Babysitter Twins, yes. Babysitter's Club, I have no idea.
Fair. Lisa goes on to say, I love everything about the world of babysitting. The responsibility, the obligations, the pressure.
And full refrigerator privileges.
That's a trust, Janie. A sacred trust.
Jeez. Lighten up, Lisa.
Lisa's already taking the job that she doesn't even have yet way too seriously.
Dress for the job you want, Miles.
I guess so, yeah. We cut across to the church where there is a sign in the parking lot that says no synagogue parking. And Matt Groening absolutely loves that sign gag. He said it's one of its favorites. And he just loves the idea that there's a feud between the Catholic Church and the synagogue that's like must be across the street.
Yeah. There could be a lot of fun there. Or a lot of terrible, terrible ideas there. Go to hell! I'm already here! Run with that.
Lovejoy is making some announcements. Friday, you will have the chance to party down in the church basement to the Jesus rock stylings of Testaments. That's on Friday, 6 p.m. sharp.
All the best bands are affiliated with Satan.
I love that. I love so much. Not like Bart's line is brilliant and perfect, but I also love that the totally rockin' band is going to be shredding at the rock and roll hour of 6 p.m.
Woo! Rock and or roll.
That's where all the best parties start. The second announcement is actually specifically advertising for Lisa Simpson's babysitting service, the cost of which is discounted by $1 for anyone who can name the topic of today's sermon.
and everybody's silent. It's like crickets because nobody knows what the sermon is about. Which is true most of the time, right?
The mystery topic, love. Unfortunately, though, even with that brilliant advertising ploy of advertising somewhere where clearly people don't listen, Lisa is very sad that she's sitting by the phone and nobody's calling. And one of my favorite jokes, I'm not going to say it's my favorite in the whole episode, but it makes me chuckle every single time. Marge explains that parents want someone that's older to be prepared for anything that could go wrong. That's why they hire teenagers.
Yeah, being older, that definitely makes you feel really bad when she says that.
But the doorbell actually rings, and it's none other than Ned Flanders in need of a babysitter, because he has to go rescue Maud. Her mother from Tyre and Sidon were being held prisoner, and that's when Homer comes up with an excuse. Like, even though clearly Flanders is having a legitimate, like, real emergency.
I'd love to, but Marge kidnapped in the Holy Land.
He, like, repeats Ned's story back to him.
And then Lisa runs up and she's like, I could babysit.
Yeah, he's like, do you know anybody? He's like, I'll if I think of anybody, I'll let you know. And, like, Lisa this whole time has been like, that's all that she's been wanting this whole episode.
And then I love it.
I'll have to ask her.
Yeah, Ned's like, can Lisa do it? Oh, I'll have to ask her, and shuts the door right in his face when she's standing right there. It's a
Homer
great little
is
exchange.
starting to become a little bit more jerk-like. You have to admit in these last couple of episodes, though I don't think it's justified to go full jerk-ass Homer at this point, as the kids say.
Well, Ned was also wearing that little yellow pin on his shirt, which I assume had something to do with the kidnapping, I guess. Did you see he was wearing that little ribbon?
That was the yellow ribbon, and I don't remember what that one stands for. I'm sure it has a meaning. They didn't comment on it at the time in the commentary.
I'm sure he's just praying for Maud and mother-in-law.
Lisa does get the job, so she's babysitting Rod and Todd, and they're actually playing a religious-based board game. And Lisa is like, hey, where's the dice?
Daddy says dice are wicked.
We just move one space at a time. It's less fun that way.
Ugh. You would know how it's going to play out every single time.
That'd be the worst, because already you're playing, like, kind of a shitty board game, but, like, at least there's some element of fun with rolling the dice. So it's a good Flanders joke. I like it.
What if one of the spaces was moved back? You would literally never win the game. Like, it would be impossible.
Yep. The game, it's a never-ending game. Lisa actually opens up the board game box and a little moth flies out, and Rod and Todd, treat this as if, like, the devil appeared. They're so terrified. Lisa calms them down and assures them that a moth is no more harmful than a ladybug.
Ah! Ladybug! Ah!
Even Lisa has to admit, they're going to get eaten alive in middle school.
I love the delivery of that line. They're going to get eaten alive in middle school. Like she's already been through the ringer, even though she's not even in middle school.
True. You know, Lisa's honestly getting off pretty easy for her first babysitting clients, because Rod and Todd are obviously going to behave and obey and all that good stuff, and it's already bedtime, and they're saying their prayers, but they're not above a little bit of psychology, because during the prayers, they actually thank God for sending Lisa to protect them from the moth, but also that maybe she'll read them a bedtime story about robots named Rod and Todd.
And yeah, I don't think that they're tricking Lisa. She's
no, not at all. I mean, yeah,
but they get what they want.
They're just very, like, honestly, adorably sweet, like, way overprotected kids who just want to hear about robots, but somehow aren't scared of the robots.
Well, just for you, Miles. Once there was a robot named Todd.
Did he have a brother?
Yes, he had a brother named Rod, who was 2 space years older than him.
I don't like this story. When Ned arrives home, he's actually impressed that not only did everything go well, but the boys stayed calm during a bug attack.
And wow. Todd didn't wet himself.
That's right. So Ned actually puts a good word in for Lisa, and the word starts to spread because immediately she starts to get more jobs. Chief Wiggum is very excited to be off to the Bob Seger concert, though I love this exchange because Lisa's like, have fun at Bob Saget tonight, and Wiggum replies like, Bob Seger? Ah, crap.
It's this day and age, it was always easy to get a zinger on Mr. Saget there.
Dude, Bob Saget is hilarious as a stand-up comedian, and it's even funnier when you compare it to his most famous role of Danny Tanner. This is the moment, though, that you were talking about, or the sequence, maybe more than a moment, but Lisa's at this point babysitting her classmate, Ralph, and admittedly, he does need the help because she's actually having to say instructions through the door of how he should be putting his pajamas on, which honestly is like a kind of a weird scene, but I like the way they handled it because it was very funny and also showed like clearly, even though Lisa's a babysitter, there's going to be boundaries that, you know, she's not going to be in the room with her classmate who's changing. Of course, Todd's incapable. Of course, Ralph is incapable of doing this himself because he actually comes out with the pajamas on upside down and his face coming out like the little flap for your butt.
I was going to say, his face is in the butthole.
Ha ha, well said.
I dressed myself. But see, Ralph, what you said earlier in the podcast too, is that Ralph is the only one I think should get away doing this with. And it's not because Ralph's dumb, it's because he's so smart he doesn't care.
Oh, is that it?
Yes.
Interesting theory.
He's above societal norms, Miles.
Like Steve Jobs? He just like marches to his own beat?
Yeah, sure. We'll go that route. He's not going to wig out.
So back at the Simpsons home, we see Bart running by Homer, who is eating pizza. They did talk a little bit actually about the pizza specifically, and that's one of the things that they commonly have to give notes back on because they struggle to get the color right with pizza on the show. And apparently that's largely to do with the fact that Korea is where the show is animated and pizza isn't really a food there.
That's very interesting. Wow, you would never think something would be that difficult.
It's always they have to send it back. It needs to be more yellow or more orange or more whatever.
I mean, that makes complete sense when it's said out loud, but it's something you would never think twice about.
Agreed, yeah. But Homer explains to Bart that he's dressed unusually fancy, specifically wearing a tuxedo, and it's because he rented it for the gala that's going on tomorrow, and he wants to get it as much use out of it as possible, you know, like with a rented car. Get all the mileage you can, then ball it up and cram it through the mail slot.
And we'll have a quick little line later where you're thinking maybe Homer shouldn't have done that.
Once again, Lisa is getting dropped off at home and actually collecting her payment from Dr. Hibbert for babysitting. And again, she gets rave reviews that actually...
She's more reliable than this old Volvo. Or the old Volvo mechanics.
Yeah.
And then the seat breaks because he's in the driver's seat and it bends backwards. And I love that the car drives off with nobody sitting in the driver's seat.
He's like leaned all the way reclined. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up in her room, though, Bart walks by and sees Lisa counting all of her money. And he's impressed that she made all that just by sitting around and watching TV and eating food.
There's a lot more to it than that, Bart. I don't just babysit. I sell peace of mind for $1 an hour. $2 after 9 o'clock.
Whoa, with that kind of money, I'd be gone. Out of here.
Maybe in $1990.
Dude, even in $1990, I mean, I know she's only 8, but $1 an hour is a hell of a deal.
Oh, hell yeah.
So the next day, we see Homer and Marge coming down the stairs. They're all dressed fancy. This is actually a really common meme I see online, or a GIF, I guess you would say, where it's just the two of them in their fancy clothing. But Homer has a comment where he's like, "Oh, I sure hope no one notices the pie stain."
Well, he was eating in his rented suit, so that's what's going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
But yes, I want to bring up Bart's line here where he talks to Homer saying, "You could be Abe Lincoln's father's boss." And I want everyone to remember that because I had a weird thing I saw in the background later on, and I don't understand why it's there, and it just seems almost referencing this line. But that's on Homer's side. On Marge's side, her dress kind of reminds me of the dress she bought at the end of the Class Struggles of Springfield episode. It's different. It doesn't have all the outlines that one did, but the base color is still the same. So I'm wondering if she actually, because I think she ripped the tag off that one, so they did have to keep it, so that would make sense.
She could have just made it into something else again. Bought more material.
Exactly.
But in this moment, actually, Bart's kind of wondering where the babysitter is, or if Grandpa's going to be watching, or, who's in charge, basically. And that's when Marge decides to let it drop that Lisa's actually going to be babysitting tonight.
Ooh.
She's got a great reputation of reliability. And I love Homer's line where Bart's clearly pissed about this, and Homer's like, "Take it like a man, boy, and do everything your sister says."
Oh, man, this is probably going to go terribly. Or, not at all.
Bart instantly is very vocal about how he's not happy about this injustice. I mean, she's 2 years and 38 days younger than him.
You can do math?
But Marge and Homer just slip out of the house and make sure he brushes his teeth.
Oh.
And we kind of see that Bart's angry as Lisa has a bit of a nervous look on her face. And that brings us to the end of our first act. We are going to go ahead and take just a very quick break, and we'll be right back for Act 2 of My Sister, My Sitter. Hi, I'm Mr. Most Days Off. You might remember me from such podcasts as the 50th Podcast Celebration Show and the Michael Price interview. I brought a friend along today to talk to you about an exciting new product.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richie the Whiz Kid.
Miles, did you know that most people don't know where to get cool pop culture shirts?
I had no idea.
If you go to popthreads.com, you'll find a great selection of t-shirts, and if you use the discount code Simpsons, you could save 15% on your order. And that's good news for everybody.
That is good news for everybody.
And did you know the shirts are also inflammable?
Richie, that means they catch on fire.
I had no idea.
Help support the Best Darn Diddly Review Show by using our discount code Simpsons at popthreads.com. And do try to stay away from open flames.
Bye, everybody.
We start Act 2 in the Simpsons kitchen, where Lisa is trying to get Bart to warm up to the idea that she's the babysitter. Bart, I know you're not wild about having me for a sitter, but I'm not some ogre. I mean, I think you'll find me fair and fun.
You're dead.
You should wash up for dinner. To make it fun, you can use the Mr. Bubbles. It'll be like giving your fingers a bubble bath.
You are so dead.
And this is a very ominous tone coming from Bart to his sister. We briefly connect with Homer and Marge, who are on their way down to the waterfront, though it seems that Homer is literally like driving through the gala. He clearly missed a sign somewhere because he's driving through. People are like having to dive out of the way, and he's like, even like, I love these pedestrian malls. There's practically no traffic.
He's driving like on the dock area.
Yeah.
You can hear it like shaking around.
Marge is like trying to be like, honey, I don't think we're supposed to be here. And even Mayor Quimby in the background is, stop, you idiots!
And he does.
Homer parks like in the middle of everything, yeah.
Over there, like, save the children icon.
The children's message of peace, yes. Again, that's just a brief segue from our real story, which is back with Bart and Lisa, where they're now actually having dinner, and it seems like things are going okay. Bart's actually being oddly polite. May I have some more lima beans, please?
Certainly.
And we see Lisa starts to scoop a little spoonful of lima beans at a time, and Bart just simply keeps saying, more than that, more than that,
Certainly.
more than that.
Maybe you should eat the ones you have.
Oh, I didn't say I was going to eat them. I just wanted to look at them because of how gross they are. And he just pushes the plate away.
To be fair, she's completely babying him in this scene. Like, I just picture a brother and sister. She'd be like, you can get them yourself. What do you want?
Yeah, I would agree with you on that regard. Like, I think maybe she's just nervous, so she's overcompensating. But yeah, I think in any situation, Lisa would be like, yeah, grab a spoon, get your own damn lima beans.
Or maybe Bart was totally just like, I'm not going to do it. You're my babysitter. You need to do it for me. Because I could totally see him doing that.
Bart is being a complete chode right now, so it kind of happens. He actually asked for dessert, but Lisa's like, Bart, if you don't want to have a babysitter, maybe you should stop being such a baby.
Oof. Oh, I'm a baby, huh? Well, then I'll act like a baby. How?
He starts actually like taking giant globs of chocolate ice cream, but he doesn't close his mouth, so it just kind of melts and runs down his like face and shirt. And...
Gaga goo goo.
Bart, even babies know how to open and close their mouths. You need a bib, and she actually ties one around him.
Oh, baby hate bib. Wah, wah.
And he starts banging around on the table, and actually this gets Maggie going, because Maggie sees Bart throwing a fit, so she starts throwing a fit, which of course makes Lisa further upset, but Bart's got it under control. Relax, Lise, I'll just give her some ice cream, which instantly makes Maggie go like psycho, because it turns out that it's coffee ice cream, and it has caffeine in it. This is the biggest plot hole in The Simpsons to date, because coffee ice cream is disgusting. Who in the hell would be eating this at age 10 and 8? I don't like it in my 30s. I can't imagine a child wanting any.
Homer probably accidentally got it because all of the chocolate was gone from all of the other ones, so he got the one that looked the same color.
But Bart's like, just like, well, at least this is going to make things more interesting for you now, won't it?
Oh. Dick move, Bart. Dick move.
Yeah. Back at the Squidport with Homer and Marge, they're having a lovely time. Marge is like, ooh, it's so beautiful. This is what I imagine Paris must be like.
You've never been?
I'm so honored that Springfield has been chosen to host all of these upscale chain stores. I guess that'll make us yuppies, huh, homie?
I'm really more of a slacker.
There are a lot of signs and stores happening in the background on this one. My favorite, though, is my favorite, though, is the Itchy and Scratchy outlet stores having a Poochie closeout.
That's continuity. But I wrote down just 3 stores that I thought were really funny, which the first one you saw was Turban Outfitters. I liked It's a Wonderful Knife, and then the one I referenced at the beginning of our podcast, Much Ado About Muffins. Those are the ones that caught my eye the most.
Yeah, but there's a lot happening in the background on the Squidport. Easier just to Google the image of it, honestly.
Yeah. But don't forget about Malaria Zone.
They actually stop there so Marge can poke around the Explorer shop, and Homer notices a restaurant called Planet Hype, a restaurant owned by celebrities, including Rainier Wolfcastle, who's being interviewed by the press.
It's true. The entire menu was personally approved by my secretary.
Marge notices that they made a Cadillac look as if it had crashed into the side of the building, much like you might at a Planet Hollywood in real life. But when we cut up to this particular Cadillac, it turns out that it just is Hans Mole Man, and he really did just drive into the side of a building.
Help me!
So, we did get a fun little bit from the commentary on this one. I mentioned there wasn't a lot, but I found this to be really interesting. There was actually a script written where there was going to be an entire episode based on the Planet Hype, which is actually a parody of Planet Hollywood, which was a real-life restaurant started by celebrities such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone, who all had stock and stakes in this company. Well, it got to the Simpsons staff that it was actually told directly to the Simpsons staff that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone all agreed to do an episode as long as it referenced Planet Hollywood. And they immediately got to work, wrote out an entire script, had it all set, but whenever they reached back out to them, it turns out that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone had no idea what the Simpsons staff was talking about. It was just some hotshot agent who decided to take it upon themselves to make this claim, much like Ari Gold and Entourage is like the vibe I'm getting from this story. But basically, he just essentially is like, well, I'll make it happen if you do it. But they got it and were like, no, we're not doing this.
Aww.
Like, yeah, it was one of those seemed like it was going to be a real hit type thing with these three huge celebrities all in one episode. But it was all based on lies. They did salvage, though, the concept of Planet Hype and recycled it for this episode.
Just one really quick joke. Man, can you imagine seeing a scene, because you know they would have done it with Schwarzenegger and Rainier Wolfcastle meeting, like,
that would have been brilliant, yes. Oh, man, I honestly didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. That would have been really, really funny.
Oh, man, the possibilities.
You know, one savvy business owner of Springfield, though, is actually taking full advantage of the new squid port, because we see a very fancy storefront to Moe's new bar. And it's such a fancy place.
Moe's Brewing Company, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's such a fancy place that it's got a secret tunnel entrance. And we see a tourist walk all the way through this long, long walk, which basically is just a tunnel that takes you to the original Moe's Tavern. I love the tourist walks in and is like, hey, this isn't a faux dive. This is a dive.
You're a long way from home, yuppie boy. I'll start a tab.
Hey, man, generating business. You gotta do what you gotta do.
But how much money did he waste on all that wood?
That's true. He's gonna have to sell a lot of duff.
Or doof.
Maybe he convinced the town to build it, or he sold a endangered whale or something.
Barney must be working at a construction site right now.
Back at the Simpsons home, Lisa is struggling to keep a hyper Maggie calm. She's doing gymnastics on the shower curtain rod, and Lisa has gotten to the point where she's bargaining. If you come down, I'll give you some more coffee. Lots more coffee. Bart, are you getting ready for bed?
I am.
Though you can just tell from the voice that he's definitely not. And when we cut down to the kitchen, we see Bart's on the phone.
That's right. I want the 25-foot Italian party sub, and don't skip on the vinegar.
Click.
It's time Lisa learned what babysitting Bart Simpson is all about.
And we see him dial up another number.
Yes, I'd like to host an AA meeting. Tonight, if possible.
Lisa's still upstairs dealing with the over-caffeinated Maggie, and she's literally going all over the nursery, bouncing around like a rubber ball, almost like Flubber, if you've seen that movie. She gets a hold of a baby powder bottle and makes, of course, a huge cloudy mess all over the entire room, and specifically Lisa.
You know, Miles, I would want to say, as a child, I know Bart took it too far when I was younger, but I still kind of saw and understood why Bart was doing it. But as an adult, I'm just like, it just makes me think of work all the time when I see this, and I'm like, oh man, Lisa, that's how I look at the end of a night of work sometimes.
Do your employees constantly like bounce around over caffeinated, spraying you with baby powder?
Yes, all the time, essentially.
When Lisa does get downstairs, she does look like she's been through a long shift, we'll say. She finds Bart sitting on the couch, not in bed like he was told to be, but she orders him to bed, though he decides that he's going to use non-violent resistance. Lisa's offended, literally offended, that he would compare himself to Gandhi, and she's forced to try to drag his lifeless body up the stairs.
Well, she at least makes it to the stairs.
Well, as soon as she gets to the stairs, we hear the doorbell ring, and Bart actually suddenly springs to life and runs up the stairs and sits on them almost as if it's a stadium seating situation, and he wants to get the best view.
And this is what I referenced earlier, because maybe I'm wrong and I'm just completely stupid and forgotten everything we've talked about for almost 3 years, or absolutely 3 years at this point. But on the Simpsons wall on the staircase, there's a picture of Abe Lincoln. And I don't know
what?
I don't know where
really?
It came from. There's a dude in a hat that looks like an Abe Lincoln hat, and that's why I was like, Homer and Marge are on the staircase, and Bart referenced Abe Lincoln's father's boss. And I saw it for a cutaway while Bart was watching from the stairs, and I don't know where the hell that picture came from. Maybe it was supposed to be Abe from a long, long time ago, and it's just not that clear because it's not quite 1080 yet. I don't know, but there's somebody in like a stovepipe hat in the banister there in the picture.
Fascinating. I did not catch that, and they did not reference that, so I don't have anything else to help resolve that for you, but look into that, listeners.
True believers.
Yeah, there you go. You're getting homework on this episode. To celebrate, we're going to be having the authors of The Simpsons in the Classroom, Denise and Karma, coming on the show very, very soon. To celebrate, we're assigning you homework, much like they would if you took their classes.
Woohoo! Wait, Joe! No homework!
When Lisa opens the door, we see a crew of men carrying a 25-foot-long sub, swimming in vinegar, and the grand total comes out to $225 plus tip.
That doesn't seem unreasonable.
I don't know, that's $10 a foot, man.
That's about how it is, unless it's a $5 foot-long situation.
I guess it's not quite $10 a foot. I did the math wrong there. I got a little dyslexic, but yeah.
I was just going to go with it. I wasn't paying attention to your math, so...
Well, Lisa's declares she didn't order anything, but then the doorbell rings again, and before she can deal with the sandwich people, Krusty barges in.
Hey! Are you ready to get rowdy?
Excuse me?
Somebody order me for an emergency bachelor party?
Clearly he's not in the right place, and clearly it was Bart who did this, but now Krusty refuses to leave without his $500.
I get $500 for just saying, hey!
Then we see some emergency men show up asking who called for the sisterectomy.
But they actually showed up, like...
Bart starts taking pictures at this point, and then a official who's there to report on the UFO that Lisa saw arrives.
I didn't see a UFO.
That's right, miss. You didn't.
There's a scientist standing next to him with a freaking, like, needle.
Yeah, they're about to, like, drug her, but since she's already cooperating, they're like, okay, just leave it that way. Finally, a chauffeur arrives. I'm here to pick up the ambassador from Ghana.
Well, he's not here. Nobody's here. And none of you should be here. You've all been tricked.
Why would the ambassador do such a thing? That's a great joke.
Yeah.
Lisa's finally able to get all of these people out of her house, and she is pissed. She's like, Bart, you seriously need to go to bed. I'm already going to be telling Mom and Dad when you get home, but seems like Bart's complying again, because when Lisa says go to bed, he says okay.
She sees him go up the stairs, and then she walks into the kitchen.
Somehow, when she walks into the kitchen, Bart's sitting at the table.
I love how, like, shocked she is. Like, how the fuck did you do that?
I thought I told you to go to bed.
Yeah, right. Bread. You said go to bread.
I said go to bed.
Yeah, go to bread.
B-E-D. Bed.
Oh, bed. Oh. Anything you say, sis.
And Lisa's getting, like, so frustrated her eyes start to twitch in this moment. She runs upstairs to see if Bart has actually complied and finds Bart's bed to be empty, but she sees, or actually hears, Bart jumping on their mom and dad's bed in the next room over.
You didn't say which bed.
Go to your bed.
Make me.
I'll make you. Ugh!
If you want me, you gotta catch me.
But every time Lisa lunges at Bart manages to leap backwards just out of her reach, but unfortunately, he leaps back just a little bit too far and actually takes a tumble down the stairs. And it's a brutal tumble. Like I said, it made my nephews laugh, but it's like breaks Bart. You see a giant lump on his head. He actually like dislocates his elbow entirely. And as Bart's laying down there, as Richie put it, lifeless body, we actually see Krusty the Clown return again.
We'll call it even if I can have just a bit of that sandwich. Oh, I'll come back later.
And Lisa's, once again, has a look of concern. In the first act, it was a look of concern because of what she thought might happen. Now, it turns out that her fears have come true because things have gone about as bad as they possibly can. Lisa looks terrified, and that brings us to the end of our second act. We'll be right back with the conclusion of My Sister, My Sitter.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to Best Darn Diddly at patreon.com. So they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh. I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
We come back for our final act and see that Bart's lump on his head has grown like baseball size. His arm is clearly bent in the wrong direction. As Lisa puts it, It has extra corners. But Bart is actually refusing medical help as he, if anything, wants it to be worse by the time his parents gets home so that he can prove just how irresponsible Lisa is.
And he locks himself in his room so there's like a clear separation from Lisa being able to get to him.
Yeah, which the one thing about this is like, how is Bart not in like all sorts of pain right now? Like
adrenaline.
Okay, it lasts a while, but like...
I said arm-adrenaline, calm down.
Arm-adrenaline, excuse me. I'm not as familiar with that as I am adrenaline. You're right.
And head trauma. He's actually in a whole lot of pain, you just can't tell.
As you mentioned, Bart's locked away, and Lisa can't get to him, and we actually cut back to Marge and Homer, who are actually having a lovely evening. Homer is wearing a monocle in the scene, which makes me happy, and a little top hat to go with it. But as they're walking along, looking all fancy, unfortunately, it seems that they ventured over a water fountain, and Homer starts to get sprayed comically from multiple directions.
Don't laugh at me. I was once like you.
He's having a complete breakdown in front of the group of gala attendees.
Well, I want to reiterate that it's one of those water fountains where it's like a normal ground, but it's got all those holes in it where the water shoots up in different areas. It's like the water basically has imprisoned him because he's like in the middle of this giant water square.
Yeah, and he keeps trying to run, but gets caught by the different jets.
I said water of square. I meant square water. Whatever.
Yeah, same concept.
You guys know what we're talking about.
As we mentioned at the top of the show, we're not so good with the words.
Painting pictures and words just ain't our thing.
Back at the Simpsons home, again, Lisa cannot get Bart out of his room, and suddenly we hear banging coming from behind the door, and Bart even admits he's just hitting his head against the wall, trying to enlarge the lump.
Oh, he's going to use all this as evidence to ruin Lisa's reputation.
Lisa's getting desperate, and she actually decides to climb out of Maggie's nursery window and try to scale the tree branch.
That's because the noise stops.
Back into Bart's window. That's right, yeah. The banging stops suddenly, and Lisa gets nervous.
Yeah. She tells Bart that he can ride the lawnmower through the house at one point if he comes out of the room.
But to Lisa's horror, when she gets to the tree, she can see inside Bart's room, and Bart is lying unconscious on the floor.
Oh.
Lisa actually tries to call 911. She attempts to do the responsible thing, but as soon as she says the word Lisa, immediately they're like, oh yeah, we already came out there for a cysterectomy, and a severe case of butt rot, and a leprechaun bite. We're not coming out again.
Oh, the cysterectomy still gets me.
Her next thought is to call Dr. Hibbert, but immediately she puts her career over her brother at this point because she's like, oh no, I don't want to get the bad reputation from my client. She actually has a pretty cool little like dream sequence here where she's in this kind of surreal environment, and Dr. Hibbert identifies the problem with Bart is all being due to bad babysitting.
A bruise, a nasty bump on the head as a result of bad babysitting. I love that animation.
Yeah, it's kind of got like a unusual color palette for The Simpsons, which gives it like a dreamlike aura to it.
And it's dark, and the light on Dr. Hibbert's, it's not a stethoscope, the thing around his head that I forget what it's called, the way it shines on Lisa when he turns around just looks super cool.
Yeah, they do some other stuff with light later in the episode we'll talk about as well, but for now, Lisa's looking for an alternative option for her healthcare, and she finds Dr. Nick Riviera's walk-in clinic, which guarantees complete confidentiality.
Oh, I wonder if that's as good as Dr. Hibbert.
She actually says, I'm sure he's as good as Dr. Hibbert. It says so in the ad.
As good as Dr. Hibbert.
So one thing to note here, again from the commentary, is the address for Dr. Nick's clinic is 44 Bow Street. And this is actually the same address as the Harvard Lampoon Castle in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And this is not the first time or the last time this address appears. If you look around in the background of The Simpsons, it's often used in phone books, as well as driver's licenses, and anywhere they can sneak in the address, they often will.
Huh, that's really cool. You guys are getting edumacated again right here on the Best Darn Diddly Review Show.
Back at the riverfront, the squid port, Marge is starting to look concerned, and Homer's like, what's wrong? I thought you loved Jell-O shooters.
I don't know what Homer's doing on it, but it looks like he's never done one before, almost.
Marge is obviously getting worried about the kids, but Homer tries to reassure her, like, it's fine, we put Lisa in charge. She's the responsible one.
As we cut to Lisa loading Bart into a wheelbarrow.
Right, she's trying to do what she can, but Bart's unconscious and she can't get 911 to help, so she actually puts Maggie in like a little like pet crate, and she's just reassuring herself, everything's fine, happy, happy, happy family. But she's trying to wheelbarrow Bart to Dr. Nick's.
Happy, happy family.
Begging Maggie to go to sleep, too.
I mean, it doesn't matter. She's in the kennel at this point, so.
As she approaches Dr. Nick's clinic, Dr. Nick has a sign on the wall that says, we stitch and don't snitch, referring to the classic saying, snitches get stitches. When Lisa arrives, though, once again, things are not going well for her because Nick's clinic is packed, like really packed. So many familiar faces in the background on this one. And Lisa actually sees a friendly one in the crowd, and she approaches Waylon Smithers and explains that she really needs to get Bart in sooner than later, if possible.
No, I really need to get this taken care of. What the hell did he put in his butt, Miles?
We don't. Yeah, he's kind of awkwardly
he's
hunched
standing
over a little bit.
Yeah,
he's standing up and he's leaning over just a little bit. But also there's an entirely separate line for people in wheelbarrows, and there's a lot of these too. My favorite is Comic Book Guy, who apparently he says loneliness and cheeseburgers are a bad combination. Very much reminding me of the time that he went and took advantage of a wheelbarrow full of tacos when they were on Taco Tuesday or whatever.
I like Snake because he's bleeding out of his stomach, and he, I must have fell on a bullet and it drove itself into my gut.
Hey, don't worry, you don't have to make up stories here. Save that for the court. Oh, in line 2, we also have Mo, who has Barney in a wheelbarrow, a monkey who's apparently switched bodies with Professor Frink, the burger guy, Willing, and Comic Book Guy, as I already said, and we see that it's not going to be a short night for Lisa, and actually next we see Lisa is once again wheelbarrowing Bart down the side of the highway this time, when Police Chief Wiggum rolls up. Hold it right there. Well, if it isn't Springfield's finest little babysitter, Lisa Simpson.
Rub it in, Wiggum. Hi, how are you?
And Lisa's kind of trying to hide her brother at this point. She's stepping out and making herself as big as possible. I'm fine. Now, Lisa, when you're walking down the side of the road, always want to be sure to go with traffic, okay? Well, is it with traffic or against traffic? No, it's with traffic. Anyway, good night. Hold on a minute. Let me have a look at that wheelbarrow, please.
Okay.
Just as I thought. It's a Yard King. That's a quality barrow. Well, I gotta run.
Huh?
When Lisa turns around, Wiggum has driven off, and Lisa turns around and sees that the wheelbarrow's gone. Or, I'm sorry, Bart is gone, I should say. And she sees that it's tumbling down the side of this mud hill, and Lisa has no choice but to run after her, sliding down the muddy hill herself, crying out, "Oh, Bart, I'm so sorry. This is all a bad dream."
Click.
And suddenly Lisa is spotlighted, holding her brother's limp, dead-like body, and she's hit with this light that is coming from the squid port. And this is actually what I was talking about earlier, where there's some weird things with lighting. This sequence looks a little bit weird, to be honest, and I think it's due to the fact that it's kind of a yellow light on the Simpsons' yellow color skin tone, and it just kind of looks a little bit washed out in some ways.
I can see that. I see where you're coming from. I'm wondering if Maggie got herself and Bart down there, either to get away from Wiggum or to get Lisa caught,
to help,
because they're in terrible danger.
Yeah, and it actually interrupts Mayor Quimby giving a speech, and it's Skinner who notices it's Lisa Simpson, but immediately it's, what's she doing? It looks like she's caught in the act.
So, the first person that says something here after Skinner, did you notice who it was?
It's Maude Flanders.
So she has been rescued from the kidnappers then.
Apparently so, yeah. I guess Lisa's babysitting allowed Ned to rescue his bride, but not to Lisa's help, because Maude is immediately like, she murdered her brother!
And she's trying to dump the body in the harbor.
Well, duh.
And as a grim finale, she intends to drown that poor caged baby.
Whoa, that got dark quick. Jeez, smell. Lisa's kind of guarding her eyes from the light, and she's wobbly, she's nervous, she has no idea what's happening. What's happening? Where am I?
And she's on drugs!
Immediately, Homer's like, Lisa, hand over the drugs.
Not on any drugs, Dad.
But then Marge sees Bart's condition and immediately is freaking out, calling for help. and Dr. Hibbert comes over to check out the scenario.
Kneels in the mud, and when he stands up, there is no mud on his slacks.
That's funny, I didn't notice that. But after Hibbert evaluates the situation, it didn't go as bad as it was in Lisa's mind, because Hibbert declares, I think that this was caused by a very bad fall. Oh. Caused by bad babysitting. And Lisa's nightmare is complete. Yes, everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. Lisa is identified as a terrible babysitter, literally in front of every potential client in town. And we cut to the next day where back at home, Bart is wearing a cast and they're having a conversation. Hey, Bart, how's your arm?
It's all right. I was hoping they'd give me one of those steel claws, but what are you going to do? I'm sorry I was such a jerk last night. Guess I sort of ruined your babysitting business.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I can always sell seeds. You want some seeds?
No, thanks.
Ring,
ring, ring, ring, ring.
Hello, world's worst babysitter speaking.
Lisa, I'm glad I reached you. Are you available to babysit tonight?
Aren't you afraid I might take drugs and injure your children?
Yes, that is a concern, but it's so hard to find a sitter, and I've got judo tonight.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you hold on, please? I've got another call. Hello?
Lisa? Ned Flanders, you available tonight?
Didn't you hear I almost killed my brother?
You did? Just a minute. What time can you come over?
And Lisa gets double booked for babysitting to end our third act, and that brings us to the end of the episode. My sister, my sitter. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to point out about this episode?
First of all, apparently all of Springfield wants to murder their children. But besides that point, the other Babysitter Twins book that we didn't reference the name was The President's Baby is Missing. Besides that, we got everything else in the book for this evening, and I appreciate that. That means that Miles and Richie are on their game. Overall, again, this is a very straightforward episode, like we talked about at the beginning. It's this one never stands out in my mind. I don't want to use the same old trope of because it's a Lisa episode, because I don't feel like that's why it doesn't stand out. I think it's just more of one of those ones where it's just about babysitting and it's just about brother and sister, and it's got a lot of great funny moments, but it's still a good episode, just not a great one.
I think a lot of it has to do with this episode is far more grounded than a lot of the episodes that we've had recently.
Absolutely.
I mean, looking at things like Homer's Phobia, where you go on this big hunting adventure at the end where John has to save them from the reindeer. The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show is downright nuts. Simpsocalifragilistic is a zany episode with a very memorable guest character and a lot of songs. And this episode, as you said, is just very straightforward. And not only that, the other thing I wanted to point out, I don't have much, but just the last thing I want to point out is it's not only a straightforward, very, 1, 2, 3, act 1, act 2, act 3, not really a lot of B-plot, just right to the story. It's also one of the most balanced episodes we've had in a long time in terms of the script and the timing of each act, because it's almost exactly balanced, each act being almost exactly 7 minutes and exactly 3 pages of script.
And I know you love it when that happens.
I don't even necessarily love that from an episode standpoint. I do say it's easier in terms of balancing the podcast is all I mean, but I don't necessarily think that leads to better episodes. I do find it fascinating, however, that this one really does almost feel like it's more like factory manufactured than a lot of the Simpsons episodes are.
I get what you're saying there. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Still a really good episode, and I had a lot of fun reviewing it, but that's going to bring us to the end of this Best Darn Diddly Review show. Once again, as always, cannot thank you enough for joining us each week as we go through The Simpsons, the Golden Age, and beyond.
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow me at TheWiz_Kid23. But most importantly, you can follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
I'm very excited for next week's episode. We have a couple of special guests joining us to discuss both of their books, one of which is just going to be coming out when this releases. The other one has already been out. That's The Simpsons in the Classroom. We're going to have the authors of that book, Karma Waltonen and Denise Duvernay. I'm really excited to talk to these two. They're very, very smart ladies, huge Simpsons fans, and college professors that actually utilize The Simpsons in their own classroom and wrote a book discussing how others can do the same. So, really excited. Make sure you come back with us next week where we'll have them join us to review the episode Homer versus the 18th Amendment.
Let's see here. Unnecessary use of language. Bad sentence structure and speaking skills. My diagnosis: bad podcasting.
That sounds right. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.